All right. Can't wait to hear it.
No pressure. Here we go.
Who am I?
Welcome to Out of Home Insider. Today's episode is brought to you by LED Truck Media. LED Truck Media specializes in hyperlocal, street-level campaigns that get your message in front of the right people. Whether your campaign is 1 day or 1 month, with nationwide coverage, your campaign can be live in any major market within 24 hours. If you want to reach your perfect audience in a truly engaging way, visit ledtruckmedia.com. LED Truck Media, out-of-home advertising 2.0. Thanks again for making today's show possible. All right, without further ado, let's meet today's guest. Today's guest is Martin Herring. Martin is the president of entrymedia, an out-of-home company that puts brands in the hands of their target audience. An entrepreneur and pioneer, Martin has a classical wisdom about not only business, but life too, and seeing as they truly are one and the same, offers practical anecdotes for overcoming adversity and finding success despite there not always being a blueprint. Entrymedia doesn't just put ads on turnstiles at big stadiums and subway stations. They welcome eager sports fans, greet passengers, and bring the ordinary to life. Martin, thanks for being on the show today.
Oh, thanks, Tim. I'm excited to be here. Well, okay. Well, I think to learn a little bit more, I don't want to make this about, just me but I think it's important to know a little bit where I came from. So hopefully it might resonate with some people. My parents were, and I'm not going to start as a small child, but when my parents were I always thought a little bit different. My mom was from Yugoslavia. She immigrated as an adult. I remember when she actually became a U.S. citizen. I was, it was a really big deal. My dad was from Germany, came here as a small boy, fought in World War II. But the time that I grew up, it really was impacted by their what they experienced in war. And Yugoslavia, during the Nazi regime was Tito. It was a very bad time. When I was growing up, I knew nothing about it. History was, a subject I really didn't care about. It was kind of boring. But we spoke German at home. That was my first language, and I thought that was kind of weird. I was pretty embarrassed about it. I even wore lederhosen, and went to German socials with having bratwurst. Yeah, but I thought that was the strangest thing. I wanted to be like everybody else, and and my parents didn't. They were very careful about their money. And so I remember as a young boy, I was smaller. I was picked on a lot, and I thought my route towards being accepted would be to getting some nice clothes. So I went to my mom and I said, "Hey, I'm tired of wearing all this hand-me-down stuff. Can I get some new clothes?" And she said, "Sure." And I was like, "Really? That's all I had to do is ask? Who knew?" She goes, "Just go get a job." And I'm like, "But I'm 12. And she's like, "Okay."
And
so I was really ticked off, and that wore off because that wasn't going to do anything. So I ended up going, trying to think, okay, what can I do? Because, how am I going to get a job? I don't know anything. I know how to cut a lawn with my dad's, lawnmower, but what else can I do? I don't know. So I went to the nicest part of town. I put together a flyer, handwritten, and I went to the nicest homes and I offered to do anything for 75 cents an hour. And I ended up getting a job at the prettiest girl's house. Her mom wanted me to do, become like a caretaker and do whatever. And at 75 cents an hour, that's pretty good. And then I also got a job in our neighborhood with the woman who used to drive her BMW really fast through the neighborhood. That was how we all knew her. We didn't know who she was, but it really impacted me. She took me on, and contrary to what was happening in school, because I was a little bit different, and I was speaking, parents that were not American, or they were American, but they were European descent, speaking German at home. This woman took me under her wings, and everything I did, she did. She said, "You're doing a great job. You are an amazing person." And that really affected me in a positive way. She became a mentor of sorts. And I would go there every day after school, and I'd say, "What would you like me to do?" And she'd say, I don't know, just walk around and see what you think needs to be done. And so I learned how to do things from, building a patio to cleaning up to, I did cut their lawn, but she trusted me. And I kind of was forced to learn to live up to that trust. Same thing happened with the family in the super nice home in where I lived in Connecticut. So that lasted, and I always had money from that point on. And I have to be honest with you, I was a little bit frugal with my money too, but I had nice clothes. But I learned a lesson that clothes don't really change who you are and how other people treat you. It's kind of like the emperor's, you've heard of that before, where,
Sure.
there's a story about a man who had a lot of money, and he started dressing like a homeless person, and they were celebrating an event for him. They said, "Oh, he's coming in town." So they got everybody together, and he shows up at this event, and they kick him out, and they're like, and he's like, "No, this is me." So they finally let him in. They realize who it is, and everybody's kind of really weirded out, like, why is this guy wearing all this shabby clothes? And he basically starts telling them that you didn't invite me, you invited my clothes. And that's what happens a lot of times. It's a facade. So the point is that clothes don't make you, but it was a great lesson for me to find out, hey, I got to find out who I am, and that my actions are what people are going to judge me for. So I ended up going to college. I was rejected by, a ton of schools because I wasn't really that great in school. I did go get into one in University of Rhode Island, and I worked so hard there. And I kind of, in looking back now, it was a good experience, but it also, I lost my drive to be entrepreneurial. I'd been doing that in high school. I was forced to do it. But in college, I was taught by people that knew book information. They didn't necessarily have, they actually hadn't done the marketing campaigns that they were, saying, hey, you could do this marketing campaign that's on page 745. So I left there after 4 years. I got my degree, ended up getting a job at Colgate-Palmolive.
Sure.
And one of the reasons was because I spoke German. And I was hired for an international marketing training position, which was incredible. And then, as life always goes, one step forward or two steps forward, one step back. The position was put on hold because of there were some issues with financing and so on and so forth in the economy. So they said, "I'm sorry, we can't hire you right now." So I called them every day for months. And I ended up getting a job as an assistant buyer. And I was the assistant to a woman that was pregnant, that was leaving the next week. Her name is Paula. And I ended up buying all the labels for Colgate-Palmolive, from Palmolive dish liquid to Ajax. I mean, all of them. And I was wined and dined by all these salespeople trying to get the business, which was great in New York. But I'm living in Connecticut, and I'm taking the train 4 hours a day. And that just goes so far. And I mean, it was great in the beginning, but, getting up at, 5 a.m, getting back at 8 o'clock at night. Anyway, but I didn't realize it at the time until a gentleman had a heart attack in the train entering Grand Central Station. And I was taking his pulse while they were working on him. And he died. And that to me was like, there's an inflection point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was sent down to Orlando for sales training right after that. And I didn't leave. And, here I had been working with a huge company, wined and dined, it was all great. It was a wonderful experience, fantastic people. But now I ended up finding a job as a sales manager. Didn't work out. I left there. First thing I've, ever, not fulfilled. And so I had to get a job. So I got a job working at Red Robin Restaurant as a waiter.
Yum.
Oh yeah. And then during the day, I worked for the Orlando Magic. The city of Orlando was trying to get an NBA team. So I helped sell preseason tickets in order for them to qualify
Wow.
to get an NBA team. So that was, I don't know if you remember the Harlem Globetrotters. There was a guy named Curly Neal. He was part of that effort. He was, one of the best dribblers in the world. And Pat Williams was making a huge effort with that. And then the mayor and the Chamber of Commerce. So I just crushed it. I was selling those things. I was so excited about it. And at night, I was humbled. I would go and I'd work as a waiter. So, on the outside, it seemed like kind of a step down, but it was really important for me to understand the bottom. It's not like, you graduate and you never, well, I don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
You always have to do that. You always have to take care of and do the menial stuff or whatever. So I worked as a waiter, and I'm really proud. I mean, I worked really hard, and I was fortunate. I had a lot of happy customers, and one customer said, "You know what? I want you to call this guy, and I want you to I want you to see. I think he could hire you. You're what he's looking for." So I called this gentleman. His name is Bob McComas. He had a magazine in town called Central Florida Magazine, and I called him, and he hired me. And I worked for Red Robin for the next year. And I was paid a draw, which means you get a certain amount of money for your living expenses, but you got to pay it back. So for a year, I was getting this draw, and I paid it all back, through the help of, because when you sell something for a magazine, you don't get paid for months because it takes a while for it to run. So that became like my own little business. I mean, I really hustled hard. I loved it. And I did that for 7 years until the company was sold, and they fired every salesperson. But while that was happening, I kind of felt a little bit, I wanted to start doing my own thing again. And so I remember reading about a gentleman who in Phoenix, Arizona, that had come up with an idea about advertising on a baggage carousel in airports. And I called the guy and I said, man, you have such a great idea. How did you do it? And I talked to him a little bit, and he's like, give me some good suggestions. So at that point, he said, call me anytime. So I started looking around. I had a list. I had a notepad with me, and I was looking for problems. That's every day I would look around and I would look for problems that needed solutions. Not to be negative, but okay, here's a problem that could be solved. And then I started analyzing it. So there was no, like, oh, that's a dumb idea. Write them all down for 30 days. And I was waiting for a friend of mine at the Orlando Arena, right at the turnstiles, and I was waiting for this friend to come through. And it was almost like it was an epiphany. It's like, I remember it now as slow motion. People walking through, kind of like, you ever watch the movie 10 where Bo Derek's running? It's kind of like that. They're running to the turnstiles and they're grabbing it and they're looking down. And I thought, oh my gosh.
So one after another.
This is it.
Another and another.
Yes. There's nothing on there, and they're staring at it because they're coming in contact with it. And I thought, wow, what a great idea.
And you had trained your mind over that 30 days to look for opportunity.
Right.
And there it was.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of like if you're interested in buying a car, you're looking for I'd love to get a Volvo. Maybe I'd get a green one. And then all of a sudden, that's all you see is green Volvos. You're like, oh my gosh, I never noticed. They're everywhere. So what you see, what you look for, that expands. And so I found it. And I'm like, okay, this is it. I got my idea. But then what happens with most every other, entrepreneur or idea person is like, what do I do now?
Now what?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an engineer. I don't know anything, put an ad there, go, So I kind of, did a little bit of, research, but I was just I was a little bit lost. So I called the gentleman back in Phoenix.
And for anybody listening, like, Martin, what year was this? Because there was no Google. You weren't pulling up Google to ask questions.
No, Google was a number. Well, like an infinite number. That was, yeah. So no, but what I did have, I had resources, and those resources, during that time of discontent when I was selling and I was making 88% of, I was making 12% of what I brought in. And I started going, man, I'd rather get 100%. And I started looking around. yeah, instead of being angry and blaming, I said, this has been a great learning opportunity. Um, but what else can I learn here? So I started reading biographies, a ton of biographies about not just entrepreneurs, but people that have been successful people. Abraham Lincoln, John Adams, even a guy. I don't know if you ever heard of Andy Andrews, Ray Kroc. Oh gosh, what's his name? Marriott. The gentleman that started Marriott. If you go to any Marriott, there's his book right there, the biography. And I started reading about it. These guys weren't any different than anybody else, but they had determination, commitment, and they'd been through one thing that I've been through over and over, which was adversity. Degrees of adversity. And a gentleman by the name of Andy Andrews said, adversity is preparation for greatness. And that stuck with me. Like, okay, so there's a purpose to this. I'm actually learning something. So after I looked on it, came up with this great idea that I had no idea what to do with. I called a guy in Phoenix and I said, hey, what did you do when you came up with that idea about the advertising on the baggage carousels? Because I think I have an idea. And he said, well, one, I did a patent search. So you got to get a good patent attorney. I said, okay, that's a good idea. He said, you know what, I'll email it. No, I don't know if he emailed it. I'll mail you my patent attorney's name. And then he said, find a good engineer. I'm like, okay, here's a guy that I know. I said, okay, wow, this is great. He said, I'll send you my marketing materials too. I said, wow, that's great. He said, and don't quit. If you have a good idea, just go for it. There are going to be people that are going to laugh at it. There are going to be people that are going to look at the negative things about it. And it's not because they're bad. Life is challenging. We compare ourselves with other people. And a lot of people, when they see successful people, they compare themselves to that person, just the facade, and say, wow, they're lucky that they have that. But they don't know what it took for that person to drive that Maserati or that Ferrari or to have that big house. Nobody knows. So I ended up calling the patent attorney, and he said, okay, it's going to cost you this amount of money. And I'm like, I don't have much money. And he said, well, why don't you go to the library and you can do a patent search? And back then they had something called microfiche. It was like this computer screen, and then you just put in these papers or whatever, this clear information, and then you look up articles or something from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And so that's what I did every single night for a long time. Let's just say I wasn't very social for a long time, a long time.
But this is the level of commitment it takes. You can't just, it's an idea and done nothing with it.
Yeah. Everybody has ideas, but without action, it's just an idea.
Yeah.
So I kept reading. I kept trying to put myself around other people. I had a friend of mine that was very successful and started a temporary agency. And I used him as a mentor as well, gave him feedback. And then make a long story short, after a couple of years working with the patent attorney and, this engineer, finding a manufacturer and so on and so forth. I also talked to the government has a, oh my gosh, I have to think of the name. It'll come to me, but it's retired executives that are there to help people.
Yep.
SCORE is the name of it. It's basically a group of retired executives. So I went and I met with them, and they came up with some really good ideas. So I'm kind of working on all these different things. And part of my motivation also was that I had a roommate, really nice guy, that while I was working day in and day out, he was getting his car repossessed. He was watching soap operas, and it's just in the room right next to me. And it really ticked me off. It was like what I don't want. So that fueled me to push even harder. So that's what I did. And kind of fast forward, I tried a lot of different things. We did a test at the Daytona Beach Ocean Center. I came up with these flimsy sleeves, and we put them on for a now defunct water company called Splash Waters. And we did a test. The guys at SCORE said, hey, you should do a test. Have you done a test? I'm like, no. See if people notice it. So we put it on the turnstiles there. I had a photographer there taking pictures as people walk in, and it was incredible. I had all my friends helping hand these out after people left. Which ad did you see? Who was the advertiser? And people had to write it in. And I made it way too hard for myself. Like, not like, is the advertiser Pepsi? It was fill in the blank. And so what we found out, and it was a minor league hockey game. First, I got the pictures back, excuse me, the pictures back, and everybody's staring at the arm with the Splash Waters logo on it. Nobody was told, hey, look down. There's a camera person 5 to 10 feet away from them taking pictures, which is kind of like, so that was reaffirming, like, okay, people are going to be looking at this. And then we got the results back, and I ended up hiring some UCF master students to interpret the results. More people were able to recognize or to recall without aid, so no prompt, the advertiser on the turnstiles than any other sign. And it was a company nobody knew. So now the next step is, how do you break into the sports industry? Because that's where I wanted to go. So I went to different functions, just kind of, hey, can I just stop by and check out your Stadium Managers Association meeting? And I did, and so, oh yeah, just check it out. Next year, sign up. And so I talked to a couple of different people, and I had my sample there, and people that were pretty recognizable looked at it and said, nobody's going to buy it. I tell you why, Martin, because everybody wants TV visibility. Nobody cares about anything else. But I'm like, well, what about the audience that's going there? There's a value with the TV audience. There's a value in stadium, but it's all competing against the event for the attention of the fans. This is sold exclusively. First thing, people are excited. Hey, I'm going to, go see the Miami Dolphins play. And first thing I'm going to see is, Mikasuki Indian Gaming, who ended up becoming the advertisers with the Dolphins. So that really fueled me. I got ticked off, not at them, but I was like, I'm going to show them. And that's what I did. So I had to prove it now. So how am I going to get into the business or into the advertising world? So Michael Jordan retires from basketball, and Michael Jordan says, I'm going to play baseball for the Chicago White Sox. And everybody laughs at him and says, you've got to be kidding me. You're a basketball player. And sorry. And then, so he goes and plays for the Birmingham Barons AA baseball team. And I find out about it. And Orlando has a minor league baseball team called the Orlando Cubs. So I called the manager there and say, hey, I've got an idea. I want to meet with you. I have an idea that can generate some revenue. Guy's name is Roger Wexelberg. He's the general manager for the Orlando Cubs. He said, Martin, come on down. I mean, a really special guy, still friends with him. And so I met with him, and he said, Martin, it's a great idea, but we have too many other signs to sell. You sell it, we'll split it. I said, okay. So I went to the Orlando Sentinel, which is a local newspaper, and they bought it the next day. And so we put it up with my fiance when Michael Jordan was coming in town. I think it was May 9th, 1994, I think. And I still remember the fans. There were thousands of fans outside the gates. It's a small minor league ball club. I think they seated about 4. There were over 7,000 expected for this game. And they were like rattling the cages. And I'm putting these on to the arms of the turnstile. And Roger, the general manager, comes up to me and goes, Martin, we got to open the gates. We have to open the gates. And I'm like, okay, I wanted to be perfect. And we did. And they opened the gates and people swarmed in. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. It's working. And the Orlando Sentinel wrote a story about it. And then the Wall Street Journal wrote a story about it. And then USA Today Baseball Weekly and USA Today wrote a story about it. Okay, so I might have prompted them, hey, here's a story you might want to look at. But that's how we did it back then. You call editors, say, hey, here's something to think about. You write it if you want it. So they did. And then the Buffalo Bills called me and said, hey, Martin, I like your idea. Can we talk? And we did. And we ended up doing what's called a gate sponsorship. We made that up with them. So they, instead of having gate A, B, C, D, we had the Snickers entrance. We had the Coca-Cola entrance. And it tied in with their parking lot. It was perfect. And so they were a client for a long time, and it just grew from there. So I can't say that everything was easy. The steps in getting to it. In fact, there were a lot of challenges. And right now, turnstiles, for a number of years, have been taken out of ballparks and taken out of NFL, a lot of NFL stadiums, a lot of arenas, because they want free flow of people coming in. But as with anything that goes in trends, we diverted and we started focusing on places they were adding turnstiles, and that was in subway stations. In fact, not only were they adding them, they're making them more efficient and effective through touchless, where you just hold up your phone to in the New York City subway system. You hold it up and it pays for it through Venmo, American Express, Google Pay, Visa, a myriad of different, Apple Pay. And so they're expanding that. That'll be done in December. And we've had a incredible partnership of over 10 years with Outfront Media, who has, it's just been it's been an amazing partnership, a blessing to be able to help so many different companies, especially now with the pandemic and coming back with the rebirth, New York City being the kind of the epicenter where everything was going on, and the subway basically came to a screeching halt except for essential workers. And now it's coming back. They're in phase 4, and advertisers are coming back. TripAdvisor, Club Monaco. I can't tell you the one that's going up on Monday, but New York Health and Hospital, New York Presbyterian Hospital, and I post them on LinkedIn just to
Actually,
let people
Martin,
know.
You can mention who it is because this will come out on Monday, so it'll be live.
Okay, it's Quibi. Yeah, Quibi.
Cool.
Yeah, Quibi will be out 2 stations on Monday, and that's all done through Outfront Media, who's they're one of the best guys and gals that I know. They're authentic, and this pandemic has really shown their true colors. But I also want to thank the advertisers for trusting them and utilizing our signage as well to help them, because, gosh, I mean, if somebody had told me 25 years ago, we're going to go through a pandemic and you're going to play a very small role in helping companies to get their business back slowly, build brand, getting their brand message in front of people, helping to motivate their current clientele, but also their workers that, hey, we're here. We did a posting for Club Monaco, and I don't know how this relates to other people, but over 7,000 people responded on the LinkedIn post, which for a small guy is pretty good. And they were from all over the world. And Ralph Lauren owns Club Monaco. But it was so great to see the messages too, like, hey, we're back. We are on it. And so the workers were seeing, yeah, the company is supporting us. We're out there, we're fighting, we're all doing this together. And that's pretty exciting, I think, to be a small part of that. So,
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's kind of the nutshell of entrymedia, how we got here, yeah, it's been quite a ride. But I can tell you, if I can do it, anybody can do it. You have a good product, you believe in it, you're honest, and that last part is probably the most important thing. You can have a pretty good product, and if you're honest, people will try to help you out. If you have a really good product, but you're honest to a fault, where you actually want the customer to win before you win, you'll win.
It's so true. It's a concept that I was just introduced to a couple months ago. Actually, this guy right here, he's got lots of turnstiles. Jesse Cole, he owns the Savannah Bananas baseball team, and they're a
they used to be called the Sand Gnats, I think.
What's that?
I think they used to be called the Sand Gnats.
I think so.
They used to use our product. Yeah.
That's funny because he's got to say, it says, make your customers feel like they took advantage of you. And I thought, wow, that's really profound. Just, everyone talks about delivering value, but what does that really mean? And what does it feel like? And that's kind of what that's what it would feel like. Martin, how
Yeah.
long
So
was it from the time that you had the epiphany moment to the time that the Buffalo Bills are calling you? I'm sure it wasn't 6 months.
it was a couple years.
It was a few years.
So yeah, so I got stuck in a pattern which a lot of entrepreneurs do, is they come up with an idea, they do research, and they keep doing research, and they keep studying all these things. They put together a business plan, but they don't act. They don't take the next step. Why? Because it's great to have an idea, because it hasn't failed. It's an
Right.
idea. It's going to be hugely successful.
So true.
But you know what? It is failing if you don't bring it out. Because no matter what, you're going to come up with an idea, you're going to bring it to market, and it's going to have to go through different iterations. It'll change slightly. I remember going to when Michael Jordan came in town, I went to the Birmingham Barons. That was the second club I went to, and they said, "Well, Martin, how much does it cost?" And I had no idea what to tell them. And I'm like, let me get back to you, because what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to become a signage company where I sell it
Right.
and it breaks down. Who cares? Just sell a ton of them. I want it to be invested. So I sold it. I sold the rights to use it to all these clubs. And minor league baseball was one of our biggest users. We had over 100, probably over 100 clubs
Wow.
around the country using it, because they were the most creative. And we found ways. Hey, you know what? Minor league baseball, you're in a small town. You want to do some things. You want to upgrade your scoreboard. Well, why don't you use the advertising revenue from the turnstiles to help pay for that? So, or you want to get some new uniforms for your entry people. Why don't you do that? So we came up with ideas that would benefit them.
So you were
And
solving business problems
yeah,
with a piece of advertising.
yes. And in order to do that, again, before social media, you had to get in front of these people. Minor league baseball, there was a guy named Jim Paul. He used to own the El Paso Diablos. He used to have a annual seminar in beautiful El Paso, Texas, and it was called I guess it wasn't very creative, but called the El Paso Seminar. So we would go there every year, and all the minor league marketing guys would be there, and you pay to be a sponsor, but you got, I don't remember what it was, 5 minutes, 10, 15 minutes to talk with everybody. So, I learned from other people, people don't want to hear about you. They want to hear about something that relates to them. So I tried to talk to them as, okay, what are some of your problems? And I try to find out some of the problems ahead of time. And that, okay, if you can generate $10,000, what can you use that for? As opposed to, turnstile ads, that's kind of weird. But it took off. And I remember being at a trade show, and talking to one of my clients, I think he was from Tulsa, and he said, and one guy walked by and he said, "Can you believe this guy is talking about me? This guy wants to charge us to use his signage." And the guy turns around and goes, "We've been using it for years. It's fantastic, but you don't pay him anything unless you're making money." So it's like going to a stockbroker and saying, "Hey," if the stockbroker says, I'm going to tell you a way to make $100,000 and it'll cost you 10. Do you focus on the 10 it cost you or the 90 that you net? But you don't pay 10 until you make 90. And that's what happened. And the gentleman ended up becoming a client as well. But the point is that, it's hard to change, business. People are used to doing things a certain way. It's hard to break into a business. But if people see that you're authentic, that you are really wanting to help them, it might not show it initially, but it'll come out. I'll give you another example. So these are just examples. Who cares if it's about me? But the Houston Texans, a good friend of mine, became a good friend, David Peart. The team was awarded a new NFL franchise. They're opening up their stadium, and they sold the signage rights to the entrance using our turnstiles. And so I called David in, I guess it was early August, and said, "How's it going?" And his calm demeanor wasn't calm. He's like, "Martin, this is a crazy time. I can't deal with this now." I'm like, "Well, I just want to make sure that the turnstile ad sleeves are up and looking good." And he goes, I can't deal with it." I said, and it's like one of those moments where you're like, you can be upset or angry, take it personally, said, well, do you want me to help? He goes, that would be great. So I flew there. I was there the next day. It happened to be a very beautiful, warm, no, hot, muggy Houston day. And I put every one of those sleeves up.
Wow.
There was maybe 80, probably, so 240 signs. Oh my gosh, I was sweating. Oh my gosh, it was, but you know what? It was like the greatest thing because here I was. This was a new NFL franchise that was
Part of
opening up,
history.
and my signage is on here, and it's going to help all these different companies. Mattress World, Miller Beer, Ford, Coca-Cola. I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I think people notice that, and it's probably my growing up that from my parents that said, like, you have one chance to be honest, and I never forgot that, and it's really important. I've been really fortunate. I don't know if you can see the background here.
Looks
Um,
beautiful.
I'm in, where I am? I'm in beautiful Deer Valley, Utah. Is that amazing? Deer Valley is one of the nicest ski resorts in the country. And I feel so blessed to be here. This is a property that we rent out. So I've been able to buy some vacation properties, and especially now to be able to share them with family, friends, coworkers, and then we rent it out to other families that are going through hardship. And hearing what people say, we just had a family that stayed here for 40 days, another property here, and from Florida, an older couple, and hearing their comments every day, how much fun they're having, they're hiking. Normally they'd be touring all over the world, but to play a little part of that, yeah, it is. It's a, well, I don't know if I want to call it a fairy tale, but it is an incredible story for me. So this hardship has been hard for everybody. It's been extremely hard for us. If our customers don't make money, we don't make money, and our customers weren't making money. So what do? You focus on your customers. You find out what their needs are. You try to help them. You try to help promote companies that have been using the product. You kind of be there, not just through email, but by phone, so people know that you're there, and you do whatever is needed. And so when business comes back, which it is, thankfully, it's like this veil has opened up, and all of a sudden we're seeing, life coming back, and people knowing, yeah, I can work through a pandemic. We can make this work. It's harder, but we can still do it. That's been a kind of a revealing thing. And the other part is that, your priorities change a little bit too, about family, about, your loved ones and their health, and your own health, making sure that you're strong, and getting stronger, because this is a pretty challenging time for everybody. I've got my daughter here. She's in college. She's not crying, because college is now online, and she's missing all her friends. It's been really amazing watching her getting a job, and really crushing it in school, even though it's only been a week. She's doing pre-med, which I'm really proud about, her efforts. So that's kind of what we do, not what we say, but what we do. People see that in business and in life. And when things are challenging, that's when characters are usually revealed. So I can see it with you. I mean, you're hustling out there, Tim. You're trying to get the out-of-home message out there, trying to share, tidbits of information with, people that are watching. You're making a difference, and it matters.
Well, I appreciate that. And I know that this conversation is going to make a difference for a lot of people. There's a lot of people right now that are displaced and trying to figure out what's that next move. And sometimes it's just hearing from somebody that you know or you know of and going, oh, wow. Like, yeah, Martin got through that and he made an incredible life for himself. I can do that too.
Yeah.
So thank you. Truly.
You're welcome. Thank you. And anybody who ever wants feedback or want to talk to somebody, I am always available. I'm always available to pay it forward. So or even pay it back, because I've had a lot of mentors in my life. So I'm happy to do that. Anybody can reach out. And I'm just one. There's a lot of people out there, but people shouldn't get the current situation is not in our control, but what is in control is how we respond to it.
Amen.
So that's always the most important thing that we need to frame.
Martin, how can folks get in touch with you?
They can email me at martin@entrymedia.com. They can call me at 407-415-7199. Our website's entrymedia.com, of course. And I'm happy to help anybody. If it's a word of encouragement, reach out to Outfront, because they're the best, and they're helping a lot of businesses out there. But more importantly, trying to help people through all this thing. I'm happy to talk to anybody, because I've sure done my share of reaching out to people. So I'm happy to do it for anybody.
Absolutely. We'll include all that in the description and the show notes below. Martin, any last parting thoughts or words for the audience?
Well, I think, I would just say, that emotion has purpose, but we have to be really careful during this time, to kind of challenge the emotions that come up. The people that are maybe desperate, the people that are sad, the people that are, don't know what the next step is. All these things are lessons, and there's a lesson to be learned from all of it, but we just got to find it. And so reach out to people that can give you some feedback or some encouragement. But this is the time. This is one of the best times to come up with businesses. All you got to do is find a need and fill it. Look for a problem and solve it.
Beautiful, simple wisdom, as promised in the introduction. Martin, thanks so much for being here.
It was a pleasure.
If this has been helpful to you, please share it with somebody else who could benefit from the incredible stories and tidbits that Martin shared here today. And as always, don't forget to click the subscribe button down below in the corner. And thanks again to LED Truck Media for making today's show possible. Talk to you guys next time.